brother. Okay, we're going to call the the July 2021 meeting of the Lake Commission to order. Thank you all for coming. First order of business. Review and act on the acceptance of the minutes of the June 2021 meeting. There are none. So, moving on. Review and approval of bills and expenses. Do you have any?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And, all right, we're going to move on to commissioners' reports. I'll start off by saying I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff down the agenda here, so I'll yield my time. Mr. Pica?
Well, Mr. Chair, a few things. I'm reading the correspondence that's been sent to the commission, which is a lot to discuss in itself. So I'm going to also hold my comments to that section of the meeting and may deal with that. A couple other comments, relative to the weather. The lake obviously hasn't been used, it seems to me, as much, and relative to the no-wake need, relative to the high water condition of the lake, as much as it was the previous month before we last met. Have had a couple of concerns expressed about the amount of Eurasian milfoil in the Half Moon Cove and how it's choking people's motors, that they can't operate them, and that it seems to be a real nuisance. Let me just say publicly, I'm going to acknowledge that. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I am going to hold any further comments till later on.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Pino?
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything specific to go over
Okay.
tonight. Did you have any specific questions or anything like that?
We got a discussion coming on down the agenda, so we can
Okay.
shoot for that. Thank you. Captain John Draper, you're not
I'm in his place, Lieutenant David Doherty with the police.
Lieutenant?
I don't have anything specific as well, sir.
Okay.
Unless there's any specific questions as
All right,
to our patrols.
all right, thank you. And Mr. Polito?
Two things, the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission issued two RDAs for dock installation at 43 Bayview and 14-2 Point Road.
Okay, cool.
That was it.
That's it? All right, thank you. And Mr. Nickerson?
To report.
All right, thank you. Ms. Amory?
Just one thing that Stephanie Covino of the Planning Department in the city of Worcester is leaving. Her last day will be August 27th. So if we have any issues that we want to bring up, we probably want to do that at the August 2nd meeting, or
Okay.
there might be one more.
All right. I'm assuming they're going to replace her with someone or bring,
They have to do a search,
okay.
yeah.
They're not going to bring Michelle back
Michelle will be there in the interim.
in the interim? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Ms. Labassiere?
No report.
Oh, there you are. And Mr. Nelson?
Since I missed last month's meeting, since I was out for surgery, I've got a couple of things to mention. One of them refers back to last month. And last month, the Grafton Town Meeting warrant article for $17K in Community Preservation Act funding for the Lake Quinsigamond Commission invasive weed study of Flint Pond was passed unanimously. And just last week, the award funding paperwork was completed, signed by Lake Quinsigamond Commission representative, and the funds became available. The administrative paperwork is being handled by the Grafton Select Board's administrative assistant, and the Lake Quinsigamond Commission is required to provide quarterly reports. This project had the support, I have to mention this project had the support of Grafton's Community Preservation Committee, its Conservation Commission, its Select Board, and the Town Finance Committee, as well as support from the Planning Board members, and most importantly, is consistent with the number 1 and number 2 goals of Grafton's next decade's open space and recreation plan. And so we thank them for all of this work to get this funding. I should mention the funding is for 2 one-time projects, which is a state requirement of the Community Preservation Act. There's no way around it. These 2 field investigations are: 1, what are the pollutants and level of pollution in Flint Pond and its sediments? And 2, how the past blockages due to Wyman Gordon's World War II production activity in the water flow in and out of Flint Pond reduced it to a stagnant weed-choked body, and how these changes could possibly be reversed to return it to an open water body again, and which would also greatly reduce future weed treatment costs. And that's it as far as that funding for those 2 projects. I also want to mention that this year the Quinsigamond Rowing Club is slowly returning to full operation, with rowing membership increasing over last year's low pandemic level, but is not yet up to pre-pandemic levels. Sweep rowing of 8-oared shells has resumed, and a single sculling has greatly increased. The Quinsigamond Rowing Club has new programs this year for Learn to Row Sweep, advanced sculling and intermediate sculling, and a summer collegiate rowing program. A successful, well-attended, no-cost Learn to Row coach practice session for non-rowers was put on by the club members in June. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, awesome, very good. I want to echo your thanks to the, all the players in Grafton that got behind this. That was good to see, and, I hope we can work together like that in the future as well. So I think this is a solid project, and it will help, any reclamation we can do down there would significantly help the environment. Yes.
I would just like to add a comment to that. I didn't bring it up during my time, and this is kind of a general comment, but in having some interest in terms of Lake Quinsigamond, but also down Cape Cod, there are certain towns on the Cape that are making a point of telling all their residents to curb it in terms of excessive use of fertilizer and feeds that is getting into ponds, and it's rapidly increasing weed growth, and may even have some unfortunate effect in terms of algae growth, to the point of very serious type of algae like cyanobacteria growing. So, I mean, this affects everybody who lives in the watershed, not on the lake shores. Use fertilizer, it's going to run off, and it's going to run off into the nearest body of water. Right, we're here because we're concerned about Lake Quinsigamond, but people have to be conscientious about that, because the lake that I already brought up before, the Half Moon Cove, is choked with weeds. It's a serious concern that we all have to keep in mind. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All good points. Okay. So that's it for the Commissioners' reports, and we'll move on to the next item, is review and decide the process for public comment period for future meetings. I want to just make a brief comment here. We have, I don't know if you folks got this in your package here. And I'll kind of go through this real quick, but, I like to run an open meeting. I like to hear from the public. I think it's important that everyone get a chance to participate and to have a voice in, in these types of meetings. There are a couple of different types of meetings that we have here. One is all of our meetings are open meetings, of course, but there's the meetings that are basically business of the commission, and we go around and we try to decide and do the best we can on the different issues and to bring up all the work we're doing. And then there's the hearing, and in the hearing, basically, there is a mandatory public participation in the hearings, where we get to, hear from people, whatever the topic may be. That could be, dock fees or, any kind of things, changing of rules or however, whatever we're talking about. The first meetings, public participation is not mandatory, and it's really up to the who's ever sitting in the chairman's position to do that. In the past, I've tried to make it as open as possible. Sometimes things can kind of get out of control a little bit, and the meeting kind of goes sideways or whatever. And this kind of thing happened last month. So for my part, and that I just want to apologize to the board for having to go through that. But it did kind of bring to mind that we should make or have a policy that the public is allowed to speak and have a voice and kind of keep it into a package. So we are looking to adopt this type of policy, and this is a policy that's used by other boards here in town in Shrewsbury, the school committee, for example, this is largely modeled after. I think the selectmen also have a similar type thing. So basically, it says that all regular and special meetings of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission shall be open to the public, that means you guys can come in and listen to the meeting. It can be filmed. You have the right to do that under the open meeting law in Massachusetts. The Lake Commission desires members of the community to attend the meeting so they may become better acquainted with the operations of Lake Quinsigamond Commission. In addition, the Commission would like the opportunity to hear the wishes and ideas of members of the community on matters within the scope of our authority, or their authority. It's in order that all members of the community who wish to be heard before the Commission have a chance, and to ensure the ability of the Commission to conduct the Commission's business in an orderly manner. The following rules and procedures will be adopted consistent with state and federal free speech laws. Number one, at the commencement of each regular scheduled Lake Commission meeting, any individual or group representative will be invited to address the Commission. The length of public participation segments shall be no longer than 15 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairperson. Prior to the beginning of the meeting, speakers should give their names and issues that they wish to discuss to the Lake Commission chairperson, who will recognize them in the same order it was submitted. So we want you to sign up and say, okay, I want to speak and I have something to say. If you're a group, it'd probably be best if you pick one representative so you have the amount of time that you need so you can speak. All speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner. I'm going to go stronger than encouraged. I'm going to say you're required to present your remarks in a respectful manner. Speakers must begin their remarks by stating their name, town, city of residence, and affiliation. All remarks will be addressed through the chair of the meeting. So all remarks come through me if you have a question or someone from the board wants to respond. And I'm going to get to that part a little bit more defined in a second. But basically what this section is saying, we want to know for the record, because it is an open meeting, who you are and your affiliation if it's with a group. So I'm with the Worcester Rowing Club or whatever. Public participation shall concern items that are within the scope of the Lake Commission's authority. So if it's not something we can help or deal with, then it's probably best that we find another avenue to discuss that. Assuming that 4 or fewer speakers sign up to engage in public speaking, you'll each have 3 minutes each to present. So you should have plenty of time to do your presentation. I'm an assistant coach, speech and debates coach at the high school. So 3 minutes is a pretty long time to be able to get your ideas across. Trust me. If 5 or more speakers sign up to engage in a public statement, then we're going to reduce it to 2 minutes. We can fit it all in the 15 minutes. So it's 15 minutes overall in the beginning, and then each person will have either 3 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on how many people we have. No more than 6 speakers will be accommodated at any individual meeting, only because we can't fit it all in the 20 minutes, so. So it's going to be a first-come, first-served basis when you sign up. Large groups, Atara just said this, a large group addressing the same topics, it's going to encourage to pick one person. Speakers may not assign their time to another speaker, or, it's not Congress. So, in general, their time extensions will not be permitted. So when I ask you to, when you've got to the end of your time frame, and the chair asked you to stop speaking and let someone else have a chance, then we, expect that to happen. So the chair reserves the right to terminate speech which is not constitutionally protected because it constitutes true threats, incitement to lawless conduct, comments that were found by a court of law to be defamatory, and or sexually explicit comments made to appear to the prudent interest. So verbal comments will also be curtailed once they exceed the time limit. We just went over that. And everything has to be in the scope of the Lake Commission's authority. So we don't want to talk about stuff that we can't do anything about. Written comments may be presented to the Lake Commission before or after the meeting for the commission members' review and consideration at the appropriate time. We always encourage that. And public participation is not a time for debate or response to comments by the Lake Commission. The constitutional free speech rights of participants and public participation will be respected. So what number 10 is basically saying is that, this isn't going to be a dialogue back and forth and a debate. We want to hear what you have to say, and, we move on to the next speaker and go forward and at that point get on with the commission's business. So is there any comment from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
had a request this evening that in terms of any letters sent to the commission,
Yeah?
could they be photocopied or emailed and put on our website so that it would be available to the public to read themselves?
I'll look into that. That's a huge administrative ask. We're all volunteers,
Right.
and we're, I don't want to wear out our welcome with the town of Shrewsbury does an incredible job administering all our stuff. They manage our bank accounts. They do all the administrative paperwork. Right now, they're doing all the permits for us, getting those out there. The Shrewsbury PD obviously is out there 7 days a week. And the Shrewsbury PD also administers our dock permits mostly. So we'll do the best we can to get the information out there.
Thank you,
It
Mr.
is
Chair.
public information, anything anybody sends us, so you can request it, and we can do our best to get it to you as fast as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
I have a comment about that. So you get the letters.
What? So,
Whoa.
again, we're going to curtail public comment on the thing. We want to get this through. Again, it's a matter of resources that we have to do this stuff. It's not just the letters here, it's all the other things that we're doing, to manage the lake. But, I'll put it out there and ask and see how, what it is, what we can do.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
with regards to this, this comments from the general public, do you think 15 minutes is too long at the beginning of the meeting? Or is that like the norm?
We're taking this, that's what the school committee gives. I believe the selectmen do a similar thing. I'm not sure exactly what I don't know, how does it work in Grafton?
I don't know. In Conscom, we
Yeah.
don't,
Well, Concom, but
Right.
if,
not sure how the select board does it.
okay.
As
So
far as
is
my
it-
understanding, and I'm not completely sure of this, people who want to talk to the select board, actually, it's put on the agenda as an item.
Okay. Well, that's another avenue.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That way, if it's on the agenda, everybody knows what to expect and
Okay.
can kind of read it and say, oh, okay, so-and-so's going to be speaking about this. and we go from there. I don't know if that's easier or harder.
You know,
I mean,
I'm
that's what we've done.
willing to try it either way.
We've done that in the past.
Yep.
And that way, I mean, you can follow the same guidelines that you outlined, but at
Okay.
least if it's on the agenda.
So come on the agenda, you get 3 minutes to speak, and
Same, all
Yep.
the guidelines, the same,
Okay.
yeah, and at least you know what's coming.
do we still curb it
Everybody.
at, well, we kind of say that anyway. We
Yeah,
just-
the only thing you ask is just put it on the agenda, and then everything else, have
Okay.
it stay the
So,
same.
so it's basically this, but you just want to add it onto the agenda so we know what the topics are beforehand. So written request, we'll say,
Send an email, however.
an
you
email,
wanna do
right.
it. Get
By
on the
written request, you
agenda,
can send an email or.
Get on the agenda.
Okay.
They can,
we can
they'll
do
have
that
their
the
time, everybody here will know what to expect.
Okay,
And there's no surprises.
all right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
A comment? Certainly, written requests could be put on the agenda. Should we also leave an opening for someone who shows up at the meeting and asks to speak?
I know in the past, and I'm going by a few chairmans ago, you had to
Right.
request it beforehand. And it goes to the secretary and that, so, you know, unless there's some acute issue or something like that. And the other thing too I want to bring up is that anytime that you have an issue, I'm, you know, pretty available. I've talked to many people on the phone. I'm willing to, you know, to talk to you after the meeting within reason, so we're not here till 11 o'clock at night and whatnot, but, you know, so, you know, you can always come up and ask that, and we can, you know, arrange for you, if it's not something we can accommodate in that month's meeting, we can bring it up the next month. So, I'll put that out there as well. So it's not like you can't, you know, communicate with the commission at all. We definitely want to hear. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
One thing, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, is if somebody, like Commissioner Polito suggested, wants to get on the agenda, at least the commissioners will know that this is going to be discussed tonight, so we can have some thought in terms of response. Thank you.
Right. I mean, it's better, I think, that for us ever making the request too, that we have some type of time to consider it and to brush up. So if it's a question like, well, what about this? You know, you can kind of do some research and figure it out. So that's probably best. It's a good idea. I like it. I guess the next thing to do would be to have a motion to adopt this with the addition of putting it on
Written request.
a written, I should say this without sounding like Elmer Fudd, a written request to put it on. Just a question for my, so do the 15 minutes up front, or however long we're planning on doing it, or?
If you want 15 minutes, I would say that would be up to the chair, but yeah, you leave it at the 15 minutes, you could put it at probably the beginning.
Okay.
Anytime you want during the meeting,
All right.
it's at your discretion.
Well, I'm just trying to do this to get a kind of vote on, you know, we're going to accept this policy. Also, that anyone speaking, you know, they're going to agree with the rules. So by speaking, you know, by going up and speaking, they need to agree to, you know, abide by all the rules that we have in here. So that's another thing that's, you know, and we'll talk about that before every time we have this thing. Is there a motion?
A motion, we accept public participation agenda by adding the one line saying that a written request needs to be forwarded to the Lake Quinsigamond Commission to be put on the agenda to participate in this public participation.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Any comments or discussion? Forward. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So voted. Okay. Next, okay, so review and decide on process for emergency response regarding Lake Quinsigamond. What I'm asking to discuss here is that when we had the rain events and the water got up, you know, the timing on that was a Friday night. So Friday night it came up, the lake rose up to a place where everyone felt it was, you know, we should probably, have a no wake zone. The challenge with that is that, obviously, I can call a special meeting, but, to get everybody together on a Friday night, because people are either doing whatever they're doing, was very hard to do. So, and when I looked up in the open meeting law, because, meetings are typically posted, so you have to have a 48 hours, and that doesn't include weekends. So if we had gone, if you go by a strict open meeting law, as far as having a meeting, we couldn't have had the meeting until Wednesday, which effectively the lake was receding at that point, so, it was kind of a moot point. But in the open meeting law, it does have accommodations for something that's an emergency that you need to deal with right away, which is clearly that was the case in the context of the request. So I'd just like to discuss what would be best for everyone in that case, if we can, and I believe we could have a, we could have some type of a vote, either by, Zoom or a group call. So, is there any ideas? I guess I'm asking for ideas. What would be the?
Mr. Chair, comment?
Sure.
I would sort of lean towards a phone call, because setting up a Zoom meeting is again going to require some delay, particularly if it's on the weekend.
Hear, hear.
If people at Shrewsbury who normally set it up for us aren't available.
Okay.
We're not experts at Zoom, so it could end up being delayed again if we have a Zoom.
Okay, so do a group call?
A phone situation is much easier for us individually in an emergency to address.
Right. So we had reached out at that particular point. I talked to law enforcement, many members of the board, and so it wasn't done in a vacuum, but probably wasn't done as official as it should have been done. So let me go back and research that to make sure that that's acceptable.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes,
make
sir.
a suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay. If the chairman was to solicit the majority of commissioners, who thus then determine that we have an emergent situation relative to a majority of the commissioners petitioned, who say, yes, we have an emergency situation here, then the commissioners be attempted to be approached per phone call in terms of thus then making a decision about the issue of an emergent situation existing as a majority of the commissioners have so agreed. So that is, the chairman would solicit opinion from various commission members. Do you think we have an emergency situation here? I say yes, you say yes, you get 5 of the 9 commissioners to say yes, then I think that constitutes then making a decision per solicitation of all the commissioners. At that point, if you get 5 of 9 commissioners say this is an emergency situation, it's clear and evident that if you try to petition a vote from all of the commission members, that you're going to have a majority that say, yes, this is an emergency situation. And in that respect, to go further, we can try to utilize news sources, but, maybe a rope has to be put across the 2 popular boat ramps, the Corazini and the Route 20 ramp, with a simple sign that says, lake closed relative to an emergency situation. And that's because we can't have wakes, or there's cyanobacteria, or there's a tragic sewage overflow. These are a few scenarios that we've been faced with over the years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. I'm not going to ask for a vote on this right now. I just want to make sure we can, what exactly we can, will be acceptable for the record as far as the vote goes. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you. On to Number 7, update the lake management plan. Okay, so we'll go with Lake Quinsigamond first, and, well, Lake Quinsigamond, Newton Pond. We did go out for bid. The bid was awarded. We're waiting for the contractor to sign the contract, and then we're going to begin treatment. It got off a little late. There was some confusion on some of the items on the bid, because it's a little bit more complicated than it has been in the past because of the amount of different kind of tools we can use to combat the invasives in the lake. Also, good news that we were able to add on the chemical Priscillacor onto our list of accepted things from Shrewsbury Concom. We're still going to work in Worcester and Grafton as well, but that will allow us to treat the milfoil in Half Moon Bay. So the state of, as you have heard in the past many times, the state is concerned about a rare and endangered species that has been found in Half Moon Bay, and as well as Old Faith and some other parts of the lake, right in going into Round Pond, the Round Pond part of Flint Pond, past the, just north of the, just south of the Stringer Dam. This chemical has been shown not to have much effect on the plant family that we're talking about, which is called the Potamogeton. And without getting into the weeds about this, it's basically there are different variations in this family. There's a large leaf they're called the curly pond weed, and there's Vasii, which is the rare plant, which is a thin leaf one. There's a couple of other thin leaf ones that I don't know the Latin name for them, but we did not find Vasii, interestingly, in Half Moon. Not to say it's not there, but we didn't find it. In the past, what Natural Heritage has said to us when that occurred was that we got to prove it's not in there, because we saw it in there one time, and now, we have our sights set on that, so you have to prove to us and demonstrate beyond the shadow of a doubt that it doesn't exist in there anymore. This time, we were able to collaborate with Natural Heritage to test Priscillacor in the pond. So they're going to let us test Priscillacor. It's a very small pilot, the 15 acres that it's in Half Moon Bay, and they're going to let us treat in there to see, how it affects the Potamogeton when we treat there. The good news is, because we're using Half Moon Bay as a pilot, and the concern with Natural Heritage was, well, you didn't find the rare, so it's not really that good of a place for a pilot, and we don't know if that's the right place to do it, and maybe you should go someplace, And we said, well, look, we found a thin-leafed, a narrow-leafed Potamogeton. Wouldn't it be better if we treated that in Half Moon Bay? If we kill that, that's not a rare plant, and we'll have a pretty good idea that that one got, if that one got affected by the chemical, then Vasii would. So this is actually a better scenario, because we're not really endangering the endangered species. And they liked that idea, actually, which was good, and so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to move on. We've got Priscillacor added onto our list of accepted chemicals that we can use into our permit, and we should be getting that treatment done within a week or so. So hopefully that's done. That doesn't mean it's just going to disappear right overnight, but it's very, very, Priscillacor is very, very effective with Eurasian milfoil. So it should be, a good thing. So that's basically that on the Half Moon Cove. Same thing with Flint Pond. Flint Pond, we're going to use the chemicals we have been using in there. So that should be done. Next year, just to give you an idea of the future, because we did find Vasii this year in the Old Faith Bay, we're going to try to add that onto the pilot list, depending on what happens with Half Moon. But if it's successful in Half Moon, we're going to move to do it inside the Old Faith and kind of clear that up as well. So there is a big crop of it right kind of next to Sunset Beach and the docks there. But I don't know if there's a lot of milfoil right there, but there's a big crop of invasives. One of the other plants to kind of bring this up to in Half Moon Bay now, and it's really the one causing most of the problems, is tape grass. You're gonna see a lot of dead tape grass floating on top of the surface of the water, and it's all over the place. That plant is indigenous to Lake Quinsigamond. It's not a target as an invasive. So I'm not sure what's gonna happen with Bacillicor in that plant. It's not something we target. It's not a concern if it does get affected by it, but, you know, it's not something that we typically target or that would typically be acceptable to DEP to go in there and eradicate, you know, a native plant. So we have to be very careful with that. But it's still in there. You can rake that stuff up. You can bring it in and put it on your shore, and you know, I know it's not a pleasant thing. I got it in front of my house as well, along with a bunch of milfoil. But you can kind of bag it up. It dries down to
Nothing.
nothing. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It just goes down and disappears. So if someone tries to charge you for it by the pound, make sure it's dry when they do it. It'll be a lot better. So we're gonna. That's really the treatment plan at this point right now, plus the work we're gonna do with the CPC money over in Flint Pond to figure out how we can start to reclaim that area down there from a nature standpoint. Any discussion or questions?
No, just as I told you in an email earlier, I think Grafton would be really happy if we managed to be able to start some of that work this season, even if it had to be finished next season, rather than putting it all off to next season.
We are gonna, the surveys,
Yeah.
yes, we are gonna start that this year. So, I mean, those are things we can do. It doesn't, it's not time. I
Right.
wanna get the weeds behind us
Right,
because we
right.
got a window for that.
That can be
so-
even done later in the fall.
That's
after
correct,
the
yeah, because we're
weeds are
testing the sediment and that's all gonna be there, unfortunately, for, you know, longer than we probably want. Any other questions or comments? All right. Number 8, discussion of dock permitting on Lake Quinsigamond. This came up last month, to update the new dock application procedures. You should have that in your packet. So, oh, here it is, okay, so we do have do you have a version of the proposed change, or just the old application, or the existing application, I shouldn't say it's old. So you have the existing application. So we'll go through this. We're looking to make this a little bit more clear on what you can and cannot do, or what you need to do when you go to apply for your boat dock permit. This is for new applications. The current application starts off basically with all new boat docks must be approved by the Lake Commission, Quinsigamond Commission, and there are specific construction regulations. So we want to change that wording to all new and/or modifications to existing boat docks must be approved by the Lake Commission. So basically, this is going to require, we always kind of required this, but this spells it out more clearly, that we're going to require, like, if you have a boat dock, an existing boat dock out there in front of your place, and you want to make a modification to it, then you have to go through the permit process. It kind of resets it and goes back to the beginning, which is down at the, you need to fill out a new dock registration form. You need to provide a diagram of dock locations, and we're going to get a little bit more detail in a second about that. And you have to apply for determination of, what it says need, it's actually a determination of applicability, which essentially says, is this an issue that the conservation, the local conservation commission is concerned with? Typically, if you're just putting a dock in and you're not affecting the shoreline, and you're not digging or pouring concrete in or making some type of structure on the water line or past the water line, conservation is probably going to say, all right, do your thing. But if there is such a thing, then you need to do that. Also, with the, and I included the WPA application in there. Also, if that's the case, you know, we'll have the property address, we'll know if the property's, you know, you have to be a registered, you have to be the owner of record on the property that you want to put the dock on. So, you know, that will kind of define all that stuff. That application, completed application, the termination will be required in your packet. You submit to get your dock plate. Do you have any indication?
So, yeah, maybe we could change that wording to contact the local conservation commission
Okay,
to apply for either
okay,
a NOI or an RDA.
okay. An NOI, all right.
Essentially, it says the same thing, but it gives the Conservation Commission the ability to say, okay, you need this,
Yeah,
you need to go this
got it.
avenue, or you need to go this avenue.
okay,
And then that way, they'll come back with something to the Lake Commission, so you can say, okay, yes, they have been in fact to Concom, and you'll have proof.
and this is what Concom said. So, yep. So you don't get your dock plate until you've satisfied the Conservation Commission. Good. Once the dock paperwork is complete, you enclose all the completed forms required, as Mr. Polito said, with a check for the fees and mail to the Lake Quinsigamond Commission. So this is gonna be the same process, like, so if you go for changing your dock, you wanna add on to your dock or whatever, you know, you have to go back to this process and go, okay, you have to go to Conservation. Say, this is what I'm gonna do to add on to the dock. A member of the Lake Commission will review your application and let you know when you can proceed. Once your dock is built, please notify us. A member of the Lake Commission will inspect your dock, and you will be notified if it has been approved. And once the approval happens, then you can go and get your plate and your sticker. So this actually has not changed too much from the existing application we have. It's just been, you know, kind of morphed over the years. I do want to throw out, though, that I know that this is a, because right now, I'm going to say all of our dock inspections is done by Shrewsbury PD. It doesn't have to be that way. Anybody on the commission can inspect a dock and do that. So if we want to take some of the burden off of it, I mean, I'd rather have these guys spending their time patrolling the lake and keeping us safe than, you know, walking around and, you know, checking if your dock's got barrels with skull and crossbones on them. So, so we can certainly help out. Anyone has the ability to do that. Then, I don't know what you all think of that. I know when in the old days, I can remember Don Gouch coming down and inspecting my dock. He was a commission member. I remember Mike Pica came down. We shoot him off the property, but he came back to inspect the dock. So you have the ability to do that. I mean, we all, you know, the commissioners pretty much know what we want to do. Also, I'm going to add on there, before I move on to that part of it, is I want to add Grafton, the Grafton Conservation Commission on there. So if anyone on Faulkner Road or the condos there at the Flint Pond condos want to, you know, do something. So anything on the Grafton side, they would have to talk to Grafton Concom, right?
Sounds reasonable.
Oh, cool. And then, yeah, so anyone from the Lake Commission can go down there, inspect the dock, and go over all that. And then once approved, we'll go through that part of it. Also, I just want to reiterate that we changed some stuff in the residential dock. I shouldn't say we actually didn't change anything on the residential one. The residential dock is a dock used, owned, and maintained by the landowning abutter. I did change the word from a landowning abutter to the landowning abutter, only because if you read that, then if you're a landowning abutter, you know, you could put your dock anywhere, and put it in front of someone else's house, I guess, because you don't have to be a landowning abutter And some of us actually have that issue going on right now. So dock use has to be on, and maintained by the landowning abutter, which means the dock has to be in front of your house. And that's for the docking of a boat or personal watercraft that is owned by the landowning abutter. So it's going to be owned and registered by the person who owns the property, okay? A commercial dock is a dock, and this is where we changed it. On the original one, it just basically said that it was a dock that is rented. I wanted to make it specific that a commercial dock is still a dock owned and maintained by the landowning abutter that is rented, leased, or used in any manner, whether a fee is charged or not, by a non-landowning abutter of Lake Quinsigamond for the docking, mooring, storage in any manner of a boat or personal watercraft of any type or description. So basically what this says is that if you have a rental property, or if you're a commercial entity, like say the Marine Corps League or Madukas, and you're renting out your dock, the dock has to be registered in your name, the landowning abutter's name. If it's a rental property that you're renting a house to somebody, and the dock space goes with it, then the dock is still registered in the landowning abutter's name. So it's the landowning abutter's dock. And the landowning abutter is responsible to maintain the dock, and they can rent it out to whoever they want, I guess. And I want to talk about something about that in a second. That would bring the fee up to the commercial fee, if that's the case. So the commercial fee would be $100 instead of $45. So that would change that out there. And I know that there's a bunch of people out there, and they have their friend's boat on there, and this or that. So technically speaking, that would be a commercial dock if you have that on there. One thing I would like to add on here is that if we do have some type of emergency going on, emergency order like this no wake zone, that the renter or the landlord will say is responsible to notify the people of the emergency order. And I know that Sunset Beach actually did do that and was very helpful. Although there was one guy who didn't obey it, but it wasn't because you guys didn't say anything about it. So that was, and we appreciate you doing that. But that's really helpful. So, people who don't live on the lake may not follow the Facebook page. They may not see the alerts. I mean, Worcester PD sent one out. The commission sent one out. It was on SMC. It was on TV here in Shrewsbury. And also when we have something like that go on, it's. I grew up on lakes, so we had a no-wake zone. It was kind of a common. I don't remember anyone ever having to call a no-wake zone. It was just like the water got out. You didn't run around in your boat and make a wake because it wrecked your neighbor's property, and to be out of courtesy and respect, you didn't do it. But this is a big lake, and we got 2 public boat ramps on it, so some people don't get the message. We had no wake signs at the boat ramps. We had law enforcement that did a great job. Guiding people not to do it. So, it all worked out. It really did calm things down. So that was good. It wasn't perfect. I mean, not everybody adhered to it, but it was still pretty effective. So, I'd like to kind of put that in there, some kind of wording that says, that if you're going to do that, you got to be responsible for this, so people know what the rules are. It would be even better if we actually had rules. I don't know if everybody has a waiver when they rent a dock. I'm assuming there's some kind of insurance thing that you want to do, but they have the rules and regulations included in the waiver, so they can sign off that they have read those and they know what what the rules are. That would be helpful on the lake as well. So they're not, so law enforcement's not educating them. Renewal of the application, that didn't really change much. Renewal of dock application must provide the following: renewal application form and the appropriate dock fee. Unless, of course, you're changing your dock, and then you gotta go back to the Concom. New applications is kind of the same thing. All new and/or modifications to an existing dock application must, and it goes through the whole list, new dock registration form, diagram of the location with lot lines on there, notice of so you gotta contact conservation, the fees, and the appropriate dock, the application fee and the appropriate dock fee. Diagrams, it's still on here for hand-drawn, but you have to, it has to include the lot lines, what other buildings are on the property, so we know, we get an idea of what's going on there. And what the the inspector would go down there and see is that that the dock is built as proposed, and that there's it's good quality, safe material on there. We define material as, clean wood, aluminum, and, I forgot what the other one was. It was
Fiberglass.
fiberglass, okay, thank you. There's also, now, I mean, when this was written, that was kind of like what people built their docks out of. Now you can have composite decking, you can have PVC decking, you can have polypropylene, some of those floating docks you see out there are, for putting the jet skis on and whatnot, are that type of material. So those are all acceptable. We're looking to, we don't want a dock built out of old skids and, steel 55-gallon drums that are all rusted and God knows what was in them, and that, so that's the kind of thing you're looking at. So it doesn't look like a funhouse walk when you're going out there. It's not sticking out too far to cause a navigational hazard. There's a lot of thin areas in Lake Quinsigamond, really skinny areas in Lake Quinsigamond, so you have to be conscious of that. I would also consider anyone on here that or is watching today that you consider putting some type of lighting, not obtrusive lighting on the thing, but something to identify that your dock is where it is, especially if you're in one of the travel lanes on Lake Quinsigamond. I will say that, you would be liable as a dock owner if someone hit your dock, and it wasn't lit up. I don't know if you'd be liable. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but experience has shown that, you can end up paying a settlement if that's the case. No one's expecting it to be there. So that's that part of it, and all the diagrams are on there, what you need to do about that. And I think that is, I added the composite, the PVC, the rotomold, and ABS plastic, all that stuff on there. Free of grease, oil, and petroleum products. All of that is good. Pressure treated is acceptable in Massachusetts, even to put in the water. In some, like in New Hampshire, for example, you can't put pressure treated in the water. You can have it for a deck, but you can't have it sitting in the lake. And that may be the case in some lakes in Mass too, I think down the Cape. That said, petroleum products, so someone's gonna come back and they're gonna say, well, there's plastic, obviously in plastic, which is petroleum-based, and there's petroleum in some composite materials. That's not what we're looking for. We're making sure that's not old, wood that's been soaked in oil or just kind of a hazardous thing on there. So we're just going to be looking for that the dock is and it's also aesthetics. So the lake, up to 10 by 30 feet. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to put a 10 by 30-foot dock in there. It's going to go by the site, because some people aren't going to have enough room to do that and park a boat without infringing on your neighbor's lot line. And the dock may be suspended, so you can have it cantilevered over the lake. You can have it floating. You can have it on legs. So you have different ways you can set the dock up depending on the depth of your water and, where you are, what the site is. It's all about the site. And it's, it's up to the dock owner to maintain their dock and keep it maintained. Anyone who does not comply with these regulations shall be subject to a fine of not less than $50, nor more than $500, as established by the Lake Quinsigamond Commission rules and regulations. And under our rules and regulations, that could actually be per day. So as long as that dock's out of compliance. So something to bear in mind. One thing I'd also like to add in this part of it too is that what we don't have here is defined in this. We have the ability to do it, but we don't have it defined. We can remove the dock if there's non-compliance after 30 days or whatever. I don't know what does anyone have an idea about that?
There should be some type of a limitation. If it's a non-compliance and the owner is given a written letter that says your dock's in non-compliance, you have a certain amount of days before we have the right to remove it,
Or have it removed
or have it removed, yeah.
at their expense?
I don't know what that timeline is, but.
Usually it's like a 30-day thing, you know. All right, so that's, I think that's it, and then it's just the application.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
In the diagram, it would be good if you could just include the buffer zones for the WPA and the local ordinances.
Okay. In the WPA app, do they require that you show the buffer zone?
Wetlands Protection Act, do they require buffers?
Well, certainly an NOI would, right?
Yeah, you have a plan that shows it, correct.
Yeah, you have to have a plan. that
The
shows-
RDA, yes, they draw it on the plan.
Yeah.
And they show where it is.
Yeah, okay. So we can piggyback off that,
Well, I
right?
mean, if you're putting a dock in, it would be the lake.
Unless there's any,
But, and there are buffers with, that have
Well, the
predefined,
Well, it'd be 100 feet from the buffer zone.
well, 100 feet is,
Yeah.
the protection zone, but
Correct.
there's also in Worcester, there's a 15-foot no-touch
Yeah, we don't
and
have
a
that. So that would be-
30-foot
yeah.
no construction.
right.
That would be, that would be something that the Worcester Concom would,
That's why that's why we want to send them to you first, right? And say, okay, and same with Grafton, is you send it, send them to Concom, and you say, okay, here you go. So the thing, because we're in 3 communities, we don't all have the same bylaws.
Right.
And you know yours better than anybody else. But what you don't want, and, if I'm Worcester, I don't want someone saying to me, well, Shrewsbury doesn't require that. Why should I? I'm on the lake, It doesn't matter. It doesn't, if your land is in Worcester, you gotta go by Worcester's or Grafton's or Shrewsbury's, regulations. So, and that's why we, and I'm thinking that's what you were asking for last month too, right? Just to kind
Yeah,
of
that's
make
what
that
I was
formal and say, here you go, you guys do it. And that should answer a lot of the questions you were concerned about, because once it goes past musters with you folks, then, from that perspective, we're clear, and we just want to make sure that it's not, huge or oversized or built crappy or, or unsafe or something like that. So that's kind of what the direction of this is taken. Because they should be doing that. All right. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Okay.
So Peter, I just had, forgive my ignorance on this, but it goes, if you want to put a dock in, you have to go before Conscom first.
Yeah, pretty much.
You have to get a plot. I'm just thinking from a building and a construction aspect,
Yeah.
you need to show lot lines.
Yeah.
So this hand-drawn is basically just a small supplement to that package, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that would satisfy us per se, but not Concom.
Right.
So Concom, when you go to them, and if it goes to an RDA, right, you guys are gonna say, I don't see an issue here, besides you're within 100 feet.
Right.
But, you're not disrupting anything, you're not digging, you're not pouring concrete, you're not chopping down a 13-inch tree, you're not, so you're not really affecting the resource in a way that concerns the Conservation Commission.
Sure.
And they may just say an RDA, and then, you give us the line, the lot, with the buildings on it and the lot line, so we know where you are in relation to the neighbors, and we go down there and, we go by that.
So if you did a diagram that was, that, to the satisfaction of the Concom, you could just attach that diagram.
Yes, yep, that'd be more than acceptable.
It would
It's
be
probably
better than a hand-drawn.
Yep,
That's
it
what
would
I
be.
was getting at.
It would be, yeah.
It would, then you'd eliminate the potential for them clashing,
Right.
basically.
I wasn't sure if in an RDA, if you submitted that kind of a drawing.
sometimes it's just the plot plan with a hand-drawn
Okay.
area and where the dock is going to go.
So, we're kind of falling back on Conservation's expertise on that, so if they say to us, it's not a problem, then, from us, it's not a problem.
Sure.
go at it. You know, if conservation looks at it and says, oh, wait a minute, you know, and the reason that this kind of came up is in the last few years, we've had this happen. We had it happen in Shrewsbury and Twin Island, where someone poured concrete sonotubes in the lake. They built a big pressure-treated pier out into the thing with no permit. And it happened on the Worcester side as well, over in North Lake Ave. And the dock this year was damaged by the ice, because it was a bad spot to put a pier dock in. And now it's after the fact. And, you know, the conservation agent in Shrewsbury, I don't know if Worcester's done anything. I think the Worcester has an enforcement order against the one on North Lake Ave as well, because they also improved the banking on city property. But the one in Shrewsbury, I think we put out an enforcement order on it. The conservation put out an enforcement order on it. Because we brought the agent out there. He requested to go see it, yeah. So, you know, we're trying to avoid that kind of thing, and to have, you know, another set of teeth to say, look, we told you not to build that there, or we told you had to satisfy these requirements. So,
Sure.
you know, now it just, boom, it popped up. You know, that's kind of how it happened.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that was my thought, because if it does it have to go before building? So if you're building a dock, you have setbacks on your property, so you can't build within a side setback.
it doesn't require, we're not requiring, you know, zoning.
That's what I think, yeah, zoning is where I was going.
Yeah, no.
I'm just thinking, if you put your dock up on your property line, you could be in non-compliance with the building code or zoning.
I don't know if there is, because some of that code goes out the window when you get to a dock, because it's like, you know, you don't, you know. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna come down and measure that your steps are 8.5 inches high, or, you know. I'm not encouraging people to build crazy stuff. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know how far that'll go out.
If Conscom's got that process and we're just tacking on a Conscom, I'm fine with that, just,
Right.
like I said.
So it's a good question, though.
Question. What happens if you're replacing an already existing dock? You still have to go through this process?
If you're adding on to a dock, I would say yes. So if you're, you know, in my experience, has been, no one just replaces their dock with the exact same dock. You know, there's always some kind of,
Addition?
some kind of, you know, change to it. So,
So you would then?
you would, yeah, if any addition, you would.
So unless
you would have
it's
to do it.
exactly like what was there,
I think if you stay within, I don't know, we're gonna have this discussion, if you stay within the footprint, so if someone's replacing a 4-foot by 30-foot dock on a place where they had the permit, and they replace it with a 4-foot by 30-foot dock, that may be different material, maybe an aluminum frame versus a wood frame, and, you know, have composite decking on it, and, you know, in my mind, if you're making an improvement, and you're not going outside the footprint, that's probably good for the lake, but, you know, you gotta keep people at check, because they go in for 4 by 30, and the next thing you know, you gotta, you know.
so would this application apply for that?
If you're just changing, I don't know, does anyone have an opinion on that?
I think if you're making any kind of a change that's going to modify the bank, or it's gonna modify the footings, or if it's gonna in some way impact the resource,
Right.
that you have to go through the Conservation Commission.
Okay, or if you're, okay, if it's the same size, footprint, all that stuff, and it's the same basic.
I would say call.
Call.
Shrewsbury, if there's anything in question, call, and then they give you guidance.
Right.
So basically, if it's in kind, and you're not changing the bank, or you're not changing your anchor points, or you're not changing anything of that nature, I would say you're probably all set,
All right,
because you've already been through it once before.
all right, okay,
But if you were theoretically replacing the decking on it, and you changed the decking into a different material that it wasn't as impervious as what it was before, my father's going through this right now. If you changed it, theoretically, you have a certain gaps and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
There's all sorts of construction criteria for it, so
Yeah.
if you were just replacing a board with a new board, but not changing anything else, it makes sense, but there may be some reason to check that
right.
box.
If you're adding cover to it, that's not good,
Correct.
right, okay.
So would you rename this from all new boat docks to new or reconstructed or
Oh, it
replacement?
is on there. It should be, oh, I'm sorry,
No.
yes. In the beginning, the wording I'm recommending is that all new
And/or
or
modifications to existing.
modifications to existing boat docks. So all new and/or modifications to an existing boat dock has to go in front of, the Conservation Commission. Okay, so, what I'd like to do with this is, do the verbal changes, because you don't have a copy of that in front of you,
No.
right? Yeah, okay, so I'll send out the modified changes. I think I got that a little late to these guys this afternoon, so, didn't get in here, and then next month we can just vote on the changes, without having to go through the whole rigmarole. Yes? Good? All right.
Mr. Chair, just one comment.
Yes, sir.
Listening to this conversation, a couple of times people said boat docks, and other times they said docks.
Yeah.
I would suggest leaving the word boat out, because someone might argue that it doesn't apply to them because they have a dock without a boat on it. So it would be better just to omit the word boat, so it's all docks.
Okay. Maybe have a definition of dock in there,
Yeah.
but to include it, boat or no boat, so, if that doesn't come back to bite us. All right, anything else on that? Moving right along. Discussion of, in the dock part of it, so it's coming out, for some reason this summer, it's been more than typical, but, docks that are in locations that they shouldn't be in, on the end of right-of-ways, on the end of easements, and whatnot. Under our rules, and it's one thing I'd like to make, also make plain in here, that you cannot put a dock on the end of a right-of-way, a private street, unless you're the actual abutter of the private street. Excuse me, and even that, I recommend you didn't do it there, but, any type of easement or anything like that. So you're not, anything that you're not the actual registered landowner of the property. So if you have a right-of-way, you're not a registered landowner. That's in your deed, that you have the right to pass and repass, but it's not the distinction of you actually are a landowning abutter, that you own that property. So, and that there are docks that we're sending a letter out to the ones on the end of Suntag, that that are basically in the way, and they're what. Not only are they in a place they're not supposed to be, as far as like where the dock is based out of, because it's not their land. It's also not, they got a boat parked in front of someone else's property. So it's just, they can't seem to as a neighborhood get it together. So it's causing a problem, and it doesn't comply.
Were the letters sent out?
What's that?
Were the letters sent out?
No, it was not.
No.
So,
That's it?
but it will go out. So that's that one. And also, I have a question I want to put forth here on that, is that the, when there's some type of municipal structure that may be part of an easement, like the town has an easement and they have, say, a water pipe from a storm drain coming out into the lake. How do we want to handle placing a dock there? If that's someone's land, right? And the town has an easement on the land. Like the people is, they don't have an easement. They own the land and there's an easement going over it with a, you know, with an outfall right there from a storm drain. And so this is an actual dock. You know, in the face of it, and they have a dock plate, they just put it in, you know. And I can tell you historically from people who grew up in the neighborhood that no one ever put a dock there, probably because the storm drain was draining right there, so that's kind of a yuck. But I don't know, is that something we should address, or is that a conservation issue? Can you move a storm drain? Can you reroute the water in a storm drain? Like you own the land and you want to, because that happened down here as well.
Hey, no, you're not.
They actually dug a trench, put a pipe in and rerouted it.
I don't believe so.
The owners did?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, because if they dug something within the resource area, no, they
Right.
can't.
so they can't do that. But the dock is technically on, they're the landowning abutter, but they put the dock there. Is that something we want to discourage, or?
I would say yes. What if you impede the flow of the water and it backs up and something happens and it causes an adverse effect?
All right.
Also, isn't an easement a permanent recorded thing on the deed? And
Oh, yeah,
so-
it's for the, you know, the utility of the municipality to be able to get in there and maintain it.
So for anybody to alter what the easement says, that should be a violation of land law.
Right, except that here's the, you know, back to the funkiness of the dock and the gray area, that the dock is in the water, so it's not on the, you know, the dock doesn't technically impede the water flow, the way this one's set up.
So the bottom of a lake doesn't constitute land?
Oh, yeah. That's, the state owns that,
At the water's edge?
correct. At the high water mark. You know, above the high water mark, the landowner owns it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with him that we should find a way to not allow it. And I would think that that would be an enforceable action if they rerouted a storm drain belonging to the city.
All right. Okay. We'll include some kind of wording there. And for the, my plan for the right-of-ways is to send a letter to ask them to come to the next meeting and to have a hearing. And remove the dock. This is the one on the end of Sontag,
So that would be the August.
the August meeting. And do we need a vote, Jessica, to call for a hearing?
I would take one.
What's that? Why not?
I would take a
right?
vote just to make
See,
sure. so you're
gotta say
covered.
I'm sorry?
Just to make sure.
All right. So I'll take a motion to have a vote for a meeting,
I'll make the motion to have a meeting to discuss Suntag.
well, to have a
and-
hearing.
Hearing, excuse me.
In order to remove the dock at the end of Sontag Road.
Is everyone aware of the situation?
They will be, after we send the letter out.
No, I mean, on the commission.
Oh, okay.
Is this another one, different from the ones we discussed in the last two meetings?
I think it's the one we discussed in the last two meetings.
So then,
So everybody's aware of it?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I make the motion to have a hearing at our next meeting.
Is there a specific address or anything?
It's for Suntag,
That's the owner of the dock, right? That's who the plate's in?
correct.
Okay. So for
No, that's not the owner of that dock. That's the landowner.
so who owns the dock?
We want to own, we need the dock owner.
Three
Three,
Suntag.
it's three Sontag, right, yeah, right, it's three.
It's number 2 and number 3.
Number
and
two
three?
and number
Okay.
three.
All right, so number 2 and number 3 Sontag. You're number 4, you're number 4. We're not taking yours out yet.
Do we need to second that? And-
Yes, is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, abstain? All right, so voted. Okay. And the last item in the dock thing is that, one of the things that, and I guess I'm gonna discuss this, but I didn't get a hold of Cindy over the last couple of days at Shrewsbury PD. But I'd like to have better control over the database for the dock owners. We don't, it's a hard thing, and they have it in a system, in some police database that we're using for that, and it's hard to get reports out there, who's paid and who hasn't paid, which would be very helpful to know, so we can kind of, better enforce that part of it, one, and two, know where we need to go to who the scofflaws are on the thing.
Do we actually have an inventory?
Well, we have a whole, there's a database that they use, it's some kind of police database that some program there was, and so it's not in Microsoft Excel, it's not in something that's accessible to us to do it. And I think even if we want to send out mailings to these guys at the Shrewsbury PD, just sends us the labels. And we throw them on the letters and we send the stuff out. So we don't, it's just not being managed very well and efficiently. And we should probably figure out how to do it in a better way and take some heat off of Cindy, because she's got stuff to do in there besides all that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So, what if you could develop a GIS database that has the lake in it, similar to the lake management plans
Yeah.
mapping, and put your database of the existing docks in there, maybe have it maintained by, say, the GIS department at Worcester State or Clark University, and then have the student body, the people who are taking the GIS classes, update it every year.
I mean, I like the idea, if we can pull it off. Is that something you can help us figure out?
Sure. Just a call to
All
Bill
right.
Hanson.
That's your homework.
Okay.
That'd be great. I mean, it's a good idea. We can get that and help these guys. Cindy has a hard copy file with a folder of everybody's dock and their permits and all that stuff. So we have the hard copy if we need, even if we have to send the student in there to go through that and manually put them in there, if we can't get the information out of it. I asked her for like a digital file, the database, and she's like, I think this is pretty, I don't know, is that something, Mike, that they're gonna upgrade with all the
What's that?
with all the upgrades in the new station, they're gonna
Yes.
upgrade your database too? And
Actually, we're going through meetings right now to integrate and switch over to that.
yeah.
So it's quite the undertaking, to say the least.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
How many docks are there?
Wow. I gotta say, I don't know. I mean, it's sad to say that. I hate to admit that on TV, but it's gotta be 500 or more, right?
I was gonna say thousands.
I don't think it's thousands, but it's a lot. And some of those don't have plates on it. I can tell you right now that there's stickers, anything, and again, something else probably shouldn't be broadcasting on TV either, but anything south of the Stringer Dam, I'm gonna say probably 70% of those docks don't have the valid sticker on it. So, that's not to say, right, that they don't have a sticker. It's just not on the dock. So that's two different things, and that's something else we can't check. Like, I can't call up and say, hey, can you check this plate number? Because it's hard for them to cross-reference or by the address and things like that. The other thing that may help us too is public safety. Is like if you guys get a call and we have a dock place that we can correspond to a street address, would that be helpful?
Yeah.
So if someone has to go there by land, you can
Yep.
say it's 31 Flag Road.
Yeah, oftentimes we run into that on the lake, trying to orientate ourselves with
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah,
And so ultimately, we resort to our cell phones and mapping that way,
right.
which isn't always the greatest.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of where where I'm headed with this, is to kind of modernize it. And who knows, if this database is good, but, you know, I like the mapping with the GIS, that'd be cool if we could do it. All right,
Item number 9, Mr. Chair.
number 9, Mr. Vice Chair, is discussion of additional marker buoys in hazardous areas. The big one for me right now is the narrows of Flint Point. We took we used the no wake signs to put on the boat ramps to kind of calm things down. Those no wake signs belong at the narrows, which we still haven't installed yet. And so I want to get those out there as soon as possible. And I apologize that it's taken so long, but we'll get them out there, and you know, hopefully most people will comply. Hopefully everyone will, but and we can work on educating people that they need to slow down through that particular area of the lake. There's also there's a wall in Old Faith Bay that should be marked as well, because my understanding is that they've towed a few boats off that this year. It's onerous. In fact, there's an old 59 wooden Chris Craft on the bottom of the lake, an undisclosed location, that I'm almost positive hit that wall and made it to about where it is now, sitting on the bottom. It belongs to the Nipmunks now, but it looks like it's coming from that direction. And there's also a sandbar right there too at the mouth of Half Moon on that side. So those are concerned areas, and I'd like to see if we can add a couple buoys. Do you have any idea what we have for an inventory of buoys? Or they're all out there, right?
I would have to refer to Officer Valier on that.
Okay.
He's the one that handles all the buoys and
Yeah.
the marking of.
All right, I'll reach out to him and see if he can do it, and I don't know what to ask for a vote, because I know it's at least 2 and to get the sign out. And I will ask for volunteers to help us put those no wake signs out there. Again, I'd rather these guys focus on education and enforcement out there rather than placing signs and messing with that, but you know, that would be helpful, to have someone help us put those out, and when we get the new ones. But I don't know if I can. Do we ask for 2 buoys, to fund 2 buoys, or I guess we'll wait till Sean. I'll get a.
I can talk to him this week and I can
All
get you an answer,
Thank you.
certainly.
All right, and
Number 10, Mr. Chair.
number 10, discussion of damage caused by boat wakes. All right, we keep going back and forth about this. There's no easy answer to it. I don't know what to say as far as how we get this across to people who are causing damage with their boat wakes. Right now, it seems that there is no consequence for it. I don't know whether you get their number down and, you know, make an insurance claim. I don't know how a hit and run works. Like if you were on the road and you hit a car, or someone hits your car and you see them do it, you take down their license plate number, how does that work?
It would essentially be the same concept. I would say description of boat and an MS number would be helpful.
Yeah?
And then just documentation from there on forward, and it's the best way to do it.
Right, and they kind of go from there. I mean, Lake Quinsigamond is, you know, just the geography of it, it's long and narrow. There's not a lot of, you know, except for that one spot in the south end of it there that have, you know, Blake Island and Drake and Twin and all that, so there's land to kind of break up the stuff. Although a lot of boats don't go in that. They go in a channel in between the island and the mainland, and, you know, they hose the docks right through there. It's even worse, because it's probably not much wider than the room in some of those spots down there, so, well, it's wider than the room, but it's not very wide. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas about that.
Mr. Chair, as I've reviewed the rules, I would appreciate edification from any of the fellow commissioners, but I don't see anything specifically addressing this. It has come up during the commission meetings in the past that you are responsible for your wake and the damage it might do. I know we are in receipt of a letter tonight relative to questioning that issue, but it may necessitate consideration of an additional rule relative to the evolution of boating and people now having boats that specifically create large wakes, whereby they've been put on notice that it's a rule that they're going to be responsible for any damage from a large wake that might do such to the property of a landowning abutter. Please, anybody who has looked at the rules and can, edify my comments in terms of whether something already here exists. Just rule number 5 talks about any speed greater than 40 miles per hour or at a safe and reasonable speed, but it doesn't talk about any ramifications. I believe that, and I may have to appeal to the police office on the commission with this, but if you do damage relative to a wake you create, it's your responsibility, your liability. I don't know if you,
I believe there is a, I don't want to speak out of turn, I do believe there's a state law on that. I'd have to refresh my memory, but I
There is, in
believe
fact, a
reading
state
verbiage
law.
on that,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's part of the,
there's a state law, so there's no
state law.
need for
So
further discussion.
our rules cover it in terms, they don't specifically call it out, but they cover in terms of rule number 1, which is you have to obey all the laws of the lake, and you have to
Okay.
have your boat registered and all that, so it's covered under there in that regard. Any law enforcement agency on, Worcester, Shrewsbury, Grafton, the environmental police, the state police, any of those guys can, anyone with arrest powers has the power to arrest or deal with anybody on the lake, including, if someone, for example, is, the Shrewsbury police are out there and someone, jumps off a boat and runs through a yard in Worcester, they can go after them.
Okay, rule number 1, Mr. Chair, if I can, if you
And
don't mind
arrest
me
them on
interrupting.
Worcester- on
All
Worcester.
operations of watercraft on the water of Lake Quinsigamond shall be in strict compliance with the U.S. Coast Guard rules and regulations, general laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the rules and regulations of the Commission. Well, okay, and if that's in a part of state law, then that's that.
Right.
Okay, rule number 1, in case relative to people listening out there questioning whether, we have the authority to, or it's a violation of the law to create such wakes that it damages others people's property, and whether you're so liable or not. Rule number 1, relative to the officer's input, would say you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, comment?
Yes.
I also believe at the end of rule number 5 supports rule number 1, so we've got it down twice. It says speed at all times must be reasonable and proper for existing conditions.
Correct.
So all I was gonna add was, it could be a bunch of hearsay if, somebody calls the police and says somebody caused wake that caused by dock, it's this guy or this person. So it might be helpful to get video evidence of that, cell phone evidence, something, because if not, you're gonna have people coming in saying he or she did
Right,
this, or he or she did that.
You obviously have to give law enforcement something to work with. So, in a car, it's easy. Like, you go to the car and you go, okay, well, they hit a red car and they got red paint on their front bumper, that's, you kind of got it. If they did get video of it, obviously, that's good. Having a wake or a wave hit your dock and light it up and tear it off or wreck your boat or something, that's different. The only thing I'm gonna say is an exception in my mind to that is if you wake a boat, especially a crew boat or a rowboat or a canoe or a kayak, and you tip that thing over or you flood it, that's and you cause damage to the boat or injury, then, that's you're responsible for that. So that's kind of an eyewitness thing, I think, and, but it's all in that package. And, and I'm gonna also say this to not in defense of wakeboard boats, but they are not the only offenders out there. I know that their wakes can be huge, and it's obviously a problem, but they are not the biggest, they're not the only offenders. And if you're in a 20-foot runabout, inboard, outboard, and you're going 14 miles an hour, you got like a 2.5-foot wake sitting behind your boat. And I would tell everybody, in the literal sense, before you go pointing fingers at wakeboard boats, look in your mirror, because it's likely you're causing a wake as well that could cause damage to your neighbor's property. So you just got to use your common sense and courtesy, and try not to do that.
One last thing, if I can, 6 and 8-year-olds have smartphones these days, which have video function, and they know how to use those phones better than I do. Okay, so my point being that if it's that egregious, get your phone out, get the video function going, take a picture of it, so that you have some evidence. Thank you.
Just about, let everyone know about this discussion is, we're aware of it, so, and we're gonna, do the best we can. Any other questions or comments about that? Where are we on now?
11.
I'm sure Mike was paying attention, okay? Review of correspondence, and, I have an email here, from a resident that says Oak Island, and I'm not gonna read all these, word for word, but just to go the headlines, is that Oak Island and Flint Pond is out of control. That's not for me, but I'll concur with that, because I live there. Also, an email from Angela Snell that said we had instituted a no-wake zone on, on July 10th, 2021. An email on the 10th as well is talking about an advisement not to swim on Lake Quinsigamond. From the Lake Commission, that was just an advisement, not a order. But I believe that the town did close a beach and the Flint Pond boat ramp because of high bacteria counts.
Mr. Chair, the question might be asked, well, is it okay to swim now, then?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, you gotta keep an eye, if you're going to one of the beaches, they get tested every week, right, or more than that. So they're there, so you can keep an eye on that. And they're basically testing for E. coli. We also do testing for bacteria as well, but we've yet to close the lake. That's really a Board of Health thing and not a Lake Commission thing. A discussion about the Lake Quinsigamond no wake order and meeting topics and kind of a summary of what we can do to do better. I've actually asked this individual to serve on a subcommittee to help us figure out how to get the word out better. This is also from a resident, the resident we talked about, who wanted to know if they could put a rug down on a piece of land abutting the lake. This is the one right next to the easement I was talking about in the water pipe to kill the weeds on the land. That's a conservation issue. Anything on the land, anything above the high water mark, on the land side of the high water mark is conservation, not the Lake Commission. Someone asking on the July 22nd whether the no-wake rule is still in effect. We took off the no-wake zone later that afternoon, so we got that out. That's the only correspondence I have there.
Just a quick note, in that letter, he does mention the state regulations regarding safe operations of boats.
Yes, for no-wake?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real thing, so, a lot of people just kind of ignore it, and they literally don't look back, and it's happened to me. I waked a friend of mine sitting on their dock, because I wasn't paying attention to what was going on behind me. I was wondering why he gave me such a dirty look. That was it. So you have to be careful and be courteous, and, especially when it's a safety issue around a boat. Paddle boards, kayaks, canoes, rowboats, especially crew boats, because they're very low. And just to, let you know is that when a person's in a crew boat, they're typically tied into the crew boat. They tie into those things. So, you send that thing under, it's jeopardizing someone's life typically, so you gotta be careful with that. That's especially egregious.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
as someone who's been tipped over on a skull numerous times to the lake, I can agree with that.
by someone else or your own doing?
But not someone else usually, but my own doing also, I have to admit. I have been getting more complaints this summer about early morning water skiers.
Yes.
Really creating wakes and going right next to, within many feet
Right.
of some of the early morning, isolated by themselves scullers who have to, be out there at 5:30 because they got to go to work at 7:30.
You know, and I know that there are some individuals that we've, you know, are addressing to not do that, because it's really it's a recurring thing. So we're working on that, and hopefully we can, you know, work it out with law enforcement and, you know, make sure they understand where it is. And hopefully it won't have to come to a hearing, but if it gets there, that's where it's going. So we'll assure you that it's not gonna, you know, keep moving on the way it is now. I would ask, though, in the rowing community, because I have, you know, got complaints on the other side of it, you know, not to hang out at the Narrow. Well, the Narrow shouldn't even be an issue, because the Narrow's in no wake, so you shouldn't be skiing through that anyway. And there's no way you can ski, no way you can be 150 feet from shore there, on either side of it. But the other part of it is, when it gets foggy in the morning, there's a mist, you know, and the mist can be above your head when you're sitting in that scull. So that means you're invisible to anyone out there. And, you know, the lights and stuff, okay, but they really, you know, the lights are also low and it's hard to see, and you're below the sight line of a typical boat. So I would ask that people, you know, or take caution, and because that's all, you know, you're also bound by the conditions. You know, operate your boat under the, you know, with the conditions in mind.
Mr. Chair, can I comment on that?
Yeah?
I'm
not pointing at you, Bill.
No, I know, no, the Quinsigamond Rowing Club is actually in the process of rewriting their rules.
Yeah.
In the past, for many years, I think well over 10 years, it was just, if you could not go out if you could not see across the lake.
Right.
They've had 3 iterations this summer concerning when you, particularly in the fall, have 6 inches to 2 feet of fog on the
Yeah.
water. And they've readjusted their rules 3 times. They've actually asked me for some suggestions. They've changed them 3 times. They're getting better. And hopefully by the end of the summer, they will have a complete new set of rules for thin layers of fog, a foot or 2 deep, where basically you just see a head going down through the top
Yeah.
of the fog.
Right. So, yeah. Well, thank you. And you know, I'd be interested to peruse through those. All right. Cool. And,
Number 12, Mr. Chair?
yep, update from Jacqueline Burmeister. Environmental Analyst, Lakes and Ponds, Worcester, DPW and Parks. It's a long title, it's like a long card.
And actually, I will have to make a small correction of that title, because my position was now moved to the new Worcester Department of Sustainability and Resilience, which was just created this fiscal year.
That's
And
longer,
that
though.
includes the Lakes and Ponds program. And the goal of that department is to implement the newly created Green Worcester Plan, which aims to make Worcester one of the greenest cities in the country by, well, I don't know if there's a timeline on it, but one of the greenest cities in the country, so.
All right, good luck with that. That'd be a good thing, that'd be cool.
So I have prepared some sheets for all of you, just because we'll probably go through it fairly quickly. And I wanted you to be able to go back and review it. So I just had a few comments on the item that was brought up a little bit earlier on the weed management plan. As far as pondweed and the thin leaf pondweed and Priscillacor. We did use Priscillacor on Indian Lake earlier this summer to treat the Eurasian milfoil that's found there. We had not known we had thin leaf pondweed before we used the Priscillacor. Afterwards, it just took off. So there was not too much of an effect on the pondweed. In fact, it almost encouraged the growth because of the lack of Eurasian milfoil that was there after we used Priscillacor.
This is the narrow thin leaf one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it certainly had very little effect on the narrowleaf pondweed.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, I figured that would
Thank you.
be
Yeah.
a good sign for you. Additionally, if you are interested in learning more about invasive aquatic species, we recently had an angler event program with the Lake Quinsigamond Commission, the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation, called Tangled in the Weeds, and we brought in one of the Lakes and Ponds folks from the state to talk about the various invasive aquatic plants and threats to lakes and ponds here in Massachusetts. And he was very knowledgeable and knew a lot about Lake Quinsigamond as well. And then we also had the chair of the commission share a little bit about the invasive management plan. So if anyone's interested, that video, it was a virtual presentation, will be available on the Blue Space Angler Event Series website, wooanglerseries.com. You could also find a presentation there shortly on cold water fisheries or wild trout fisheries. Here in Worcester and on Lake Quinsigamond, we have 4 streams that are designated wild trout or cold water fisheries, which is really special in an urban environment, and you could learn more about that and just tips for other places you could get some great wild trout fishing in and around the area from a specialist from Mass Wildlife who joined us for that. So those are just some previous events that if you missed them, you might be interested in checking them out. So as part of my update, I just have some general water quality information. We go out and sample twice a month on Lake Quinsigamond. The last time we sampled was the 13th and the 14th of this month. We actually went out again yesterday and today. We don't have that data prepared for you yet, but this is from our last sampling event. You know, we have some warmer temperatures. The upper portion of the lake is about 72 degrees. We have high levels of dissolved oxygen, which is great for all of those cold water loving fish species like trout. If you look at the profiles in the center panel of this sheet, this gives you an idea of how the temperature and the oxygen levels change with the depth of the lake. Of course, we know that trout and other fish move up and down the water column looking for that ideal environment, and this is our way of mapping what that is. And what we're seeing now is that that threshold for them for oxygen, 4 milligrams per liter, when they start to struggle, we have not gotten to that point at any point in the water column yet as of mid-July. So we're still doing really well for oxygen and temperature in the water as far as fish health, which I know a lot of people are really interested in Lake Quinsigamond specifically, as it's such a great fishery for various types of species. Other things to note, we have a Secchi depth or a transparency in the water. The water is clear up to 10 feet down. So it's getting a little bit less clear throughout the summer, and it usually reaches its lowest point around this time. So we'll see what that gets to. 10 feet is still quite good for an urban lake or pond. It's quite clear, and I think a lot of people do notice that about Lake Quinsigamond, that it's a fairly clear lake. As of last week, we saw some bacteria closures at Regatta Point. I believe they retested yesterday or today, and we'll have the results on that soon. But Lake Park has been open. Just some quick, on the other side, you could see some of the readings from our continuous monitoring buoys. These are the buoys that we have floating out in the middle of the lake in the north and south basin that are they're solar powered, and they're taking readings continuously throughout the summer. This is a new project. We started it about midway through last year, and have been kind of calibrating the equipment. So this is just a snapshot of the temperature data over the last month, and is an example of the type of data that we'll start to be getting back in 15-minute increments, 24 hours a day. So really exciting stuff. We're hoping to eventually make it public. Yes?
That's surface temperature?
That's the surface temperature, yep. And so you could see there were some days that it got a little bit higher, and it will be interesting to map rain events compared to that at the end of the summer, since we know that the rain could affect, especially the big rain events that we've had, the surface temperature of the water. Right next to those charts, we have a picture of the informational signage that we've put up at a brand new biofiltration unit that we've installed on Lake Ave North. So a lot of the challenges that we're seeing at the lake come from stormwater, bringing in sediments and and bacteria from road runoff and roofs and the fertilizers that were mentioned earlier. And one thing that we can do to try and prevent them from affecting the lake is intercept it in what's called green infrastructure. So these are things like rain gardens where they collect the water and they filter it slowly into the ground, giving plants and other organisms in the soil a chance to break it down, sequester it so that it doesn't end up in the lake. It also slows down that lake water, makes it so it's not as warm, warming up the lake, which of course is not great for the fish either. So this is educational signage that we installed at this unit, which is located right behind it. I kind of tried to put the picture in as the background, but it didn't work out very well. I'm more than happy to send you better pictures of what the unit actually looks like. It looks like a nice little garden, and it's located at Browning Beach, and it's held up pretty well even after all the storms. So this is an example of some of the projects that we can do to try to combat some of the high levels of bacteria and nutrients that are heading into the lake. And so this was paid for through the DPW sewer division and just finished. So you could go and check that out. It's right off of Lake Ave North, right near Browning Beach. And finally, I just wanted to let you know we have some great events coming up as part of our Angler event series. These are events that we've coordinated with the other watershed associations and the commission. One of them is called Fish Tales, which is Tales of Fishing in the Heart of the Commonwealth. This is a portal where you could upload a fishing story that you've experienced or photos of you fishing on Lake Quinsigamond or other lakes and ponds in Worcester, eligible for prizes in different categories. And then at the end of the summer, we're going to print out the stories and the photos and put them on display as kind of like a celebration of fishing in the area and all the great opportunities that are here, really promote the lakes and ponds as recreational resources. And so that's something, if you have a fishtail, you can upload it going to wooanglerseries.com, fill out the Survey Monkey survey, upload your photo, you could win a prize. So definitely something worth doing. The next one is, so that's open throughout the next few weeks. We have an event in person on August 22nd called Discovering Our Water Bodies. This is a family aquatic science day at Coes Reservoir in Worcester. You can bring your kids and your whole family out to learn about how community scientists measure water quality, kind of get in the water and with kids and, learn how to collect different organisms like macroinvertebrates, cyanobacteria, fish samples, and learn how to measure the quality of the water and get kids involved. And this is hosted by the Technic-Brook Watershed Association in collaboration with the city. And I forgot to mention, the Worcester Cyanobacteria Monitoring Collaborative has 3 lakes that are part of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission purview: Newton Pond, Lake Quinsigamond, and Flint Pond. They all participated in our June sampling event, and we have reports for those 3 lakes. So, this is all only possible because of some really great volunteers that have come from the commission, the watershed associations, and just the general public who've dedicated themselves to taking some samples to really look at cyanobacteria in these water bodies and really help us understand how they could potentially affect our public health, developing methodologies that we could use to eventually create health alerts. And so those are located, I brought a couple copies here if you're interested. You could also find all of these reports on worcesterma.gov/WCMC. Does anyone have any questions?
In terms of Lake Quinsigamond cyanobacteria, the analysis you did in June, what did it show?
We're still doing pretty well. So Lake Quinsigamond has historically not had summer cyanobacteria blooms. And based on the data that we're collecting now, and it's still all very experimental, we're not doing official cell counts, but things are still looking pretty good. But this is our first year of collecting this new increased number of tests. So we're really excited to compare Lake Quinsigamond to all these other lakes and ponds. There are about 21 ponds in the program, and so we'll be able to really stack them up against each other and see which are the most at risk. And we're going to have an event probably in the fall where we're going to share all the results across all the lakes, and so we would love to have you all there.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline, very much for all your initiative.
Absolutely.
Good job. Thanks, Jack. So next up is the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association.
Hello, I'm Barbara Kickham, Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association. Last week, we had our first in-person watershed meeting at the Marine Corps League on Lake Ave in Worcester. We had about 20 people showed up, a bunch of new faces, so that was really nice. We had 2 people on Zoom, so we tried to have a Zoom meeting in hybrid and move the camera around on the laptop. They stayed on the whole meeting. I asked if they could hear, and they didn't respond, but they seemed to because they stayed on. So that was good. So we got some new volunteers to help with some fundraising ideas we're trying to throw around. We talked quite a bit about our Facebook page. We are still kind of struggling with that. Right now, we have over 1,400 people. It's a lot to manage. There's a lot of people who are very demanding. Sometimes people get rude. We have a couple people that are monitored regularly throughout the day to kind of, calm things down. We've kicked off a couple people for 24 hours. They come back, they're better behaved. But it's a lot of work. So we're trying to think about how we're going to manage that. One of the ideas that we're seriously considering is having a paid page. Lake Singletary, for example, you have to prove that you have paid your dues to the Watershed Association, and then you can get onto that Facebook page. We still want to get the information out to people, so it wouldn't be exclusive. It's not like you're going to pay to get something that you probably can't get for free, but it's a reminder to people to pay their dues, which is a lot of work for us to do. So it's something we're kind of thinking about, but I just want to remind people to be polite when they're on Facebook, and also remember that we're all volunteers, and there's a lot of questions about not getting information, and we're trying to, we're also have a subcommittee to try to get all that information together about how they can find out about water quality data. When, the difference between the commission and the Watershed Association, people still don't understand that, and they think we're the regulatory body. So, so we're gonna try to add some more stuff to our webpage on that, try to clarify some of that. Who to go to. We have some of that on there, like who do they go to with different questions? Board of Health in your town, or the Concom, doc questions, whatever, so that can kind of help some of the questions that we get over and over again. The other thing I just wanted to talk about today a little bit is we are halfway through our bacteria monitoring. We've done 5 rounds of samples. We plan to do 5 more. Next month, I'll have our intern give a little presentation with a map, and he can kind of give you the actual numbers. I want to make sure they're in the right place and everything. But basically, the snapshot of what we're seeing is that every single sample location exceeds the Department of Public Health bacteria beach monitoring concentrations. Okay, so the average of the 5 most recent samples must be less than 126 colony forming units, and all our sample locations exceed it, except for the 2 mid-lake samples. We take one in North Basin and one in the South Basin. So once you're in the middle of the lake, things dissipate, the sun kills the bacteria, it sinks, but at the tributaries, we're seeing pretty, it's not consistent, the numbers are all over, which, and the other let me just finish this thought. The other location that we're not seeing exceedance is at the UMass outfall. So that's pretty clean water too. So at the other, at each of the tributaries that we're monitoring, it's not that there's a consistent elevated bacteria. It shows that there's things going on in the watershed, either animals, ducks, geese, birds, dogs, whatever. Something is happening, and when it rains, it flushes out, and it's sporadic. It's not a consistent number. It's not always high here and always high there. But what we see is that there is consistent sources of bacteria entering the lake. So we will be submitting this information at the end of, in the fall, to DEP, and they'll be using it in their assessment of water quality, of bacterial water quality. So the numbers range as high, the highest result we had was 21,720 colony forming units at Coal Mine Brook. That's, like I said, cannot exceed 126. So that's 2 orders of magnitude, right? And the other high numbers are at the Belmont Street outfall, which we would expect. We see pretty high. It's a huge watershed that it drains down under the Route 9 bridge and gets to the lake. We'll give you more details next month, and then the final report maybe in October or November. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Nice. Don't like what I'm hearing, but it's, thank you for sharing. Okay, so, Patrick, you have anything? Luke, can we talk after the, all right, so the next date, which is why I was on my phone, checking my calendar, was August 25th, yes?
Yeah.
Wednesday, August 25th,
Wednesday, August 25th.
7 PM.
7 PM.
You make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So voted. Thank you very much.